We listen to the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Dagen efter sabbaten var 2 lärjungar på väg till en by som ligger 1 mil från Jerusalem och som heter Emmaus. De talade med varandra om allt som hade hänt. Medan de gick där och samtalade och diskuterade kom Jesus själv och slog följe med dem. Men deras ögon var förblindade och de kände inte igen honom.
I don't know if you have ever stopped by the church building on a weekday morning when the sanctuary is open for prayer and meditation. It's a peaceful place. The songs and prayers of people over the decades and the centuries are soaked into the walls and the windows and the ceiling here. And if you listen carefully, I think you can feel all of that. The deep and generous silence here can cradle you. It's peaceful when it's empty. But something a whole lot more wonderful than that happens on Sunday mornings when it is not empty. The choir warms up and the altar gets prepared and the bulletins are set out and you all gather and fill the place. Sure, it's peaceful when it's empty, but footsteps and bodies and buckets and bongo drums and shuffling chairs, this is what the church building is here for. This is holy stuff. It's holy stuff because a gathering of people is a holy opportunity. This is what Luke seems to have in mind in that story we've just begun. Now on that same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. There are lots of references in that short sentence to set the scene. That same day is Easter Day. This is Luke's account of Easter evening, the end of a very strange day, when a group of women had seen an empty tomb, an angel, and nothing more. 2 of them are 2 of Jesus' followers, 2 men who weren't there at the tomb that morning, and who joined the rest of the male disciples in dismissing the first words of the resurrection, who called the women's story an idle tale. And all these things that had happened are the events of the past week. The swift turn of events that saw Jesus move from entering the city a hero to leaving it a criminal, nailed to a cross. There is plenty for the 2 of them to be talking about on the road. And there's plenty for us to be talking about as we gather in this place. Maybe this morning you were talking to a friend about all that has happened in your life in the past week. News from family far away, or a recent success at work, or the struggle simply to get body and soul together and make it here this morning. Maybe you were talking to someone you've never met before, telling something about where you're from, learning a bit of one another's stories. Maybe you were talking to God about the longings in your heart. Whatever it is we're talking about this morning, a gathering of people is a holy opportunity. Luke says this because Jesus himself comes near. It's what happens to the unsuspecting disciples on the road, and it's the promise of our gathering as well. When we gather in the midst of our journeys, our own hopes, our own dreams, our own disappointments, Jesus himself comes near. There are lots of ways to read this wonderful story we're hearing this morning, and you'll find that today we are reading it as a blueprint for what happens in worship, as a picture of what happens when we gather week after week. The disciples gather. They listen, they share a meal, and they're sent. The story of that first Easter evening is our story as well. It's one we act out this day.